Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all well. I hope you're enjoying a beautiful Thursday. I know that I am. I've been having some interesting ideas lately. At least they're interesting to me. I hope some other people find them interesting. Domestication. What do you think about when I say the word domestication? I was talking to a friend of mine, Dan, and he was telling me, you know what, George? You know what I think? I said, what do you think, Dan? He goes, I think like we're all being domesticated. And I started thinking, like, yeah, I could see that. It kind of seems like if you look at people in the West, be it if you live a pretty comfortable life, you probably have a nice roof over your head, a couple cars, maybe you got some kids that go to school. But you compare that to some of the pictures you get out of Afghanistan, or if you've ever been fortunate enough to travel to like a third world country, things are a lot more raw. And you can make that argument, I believe, that people that have it well are pretty domesticated. But think about the ramifications of that. Like, what else does that mean? If me and my kid and maybe you and your kid are domesticated, like what does that mean? You know, one funny way to think about it, but I don't know if it's magic or tragic, but it's probably more tragic. Like, think about an indoor cat versus an outdoor cat, right? They have the collar on them, and they probably have a nice coat of fur, and they probably eat well if they live inside, but they can't go out and fight other cats that well. They can't go out and hunt, even though they have the innate ability to go out and hunt. They've never sharpened that skill, so they don't know how to use it. And when you start looking like that, when you start thinking like that, that's pretty much us. Like, we have the ability to go out and hunt, but we don't ever use it. And I think it's even more critical today. I was talking to a young kid on my route. He works at one of these UPS stores, and he's a great kid, man. He's, I don't know, probably 22, and he's probably like most 22-year-olds. But it made me think that because of the lockdown, like, he has all these ideas. And when I was picking up from there, we were chit chatting a little bit, and I could tell that he really wanted to talk to me. So I sat down and I was talking to him for a little bit. But he was bouncing all these ideas off me, and it came to my mind that, like, oh, this poor kid. This kid doesn't have any friends to sit around with and bounce ideas off of. He was telling me all these ideas about how he thinks society should be, and what the problems are. And it was pretty refreshing to hear a kid talking about the future. However, a lot of his ideas seemed to be ideas that were prepackaged and given to him. And that made me think, how many of my ideas are prepackaged and given to me? And how does that fit with domestication? Like, you know, it seems to me, it seems to me that, like, that's why we get our, like, that's why Afghanistan always kicks everyone's ass, right? Because the West, like, the Romans went there, the Russians went there, the British went there, and then we went there. Every time people lose in Afghanistan, it's because they've been domesticated. And here's a group of people, like, say what you want about the Taliban, say what you want about the people in Afghanistan. I've never been there. I don't know. I've heard some stories about things I don't agree with, but I don't think it's fair to say that those people didn't fight with heart, and those people didn't fight with pride and integrity. Like, and I think we can learn something from them. I think we can learn from them. Like, those people have fought every regime possible, and they won. They always win. They're like Floyd Mayweather. They always win. Maybe not right off the bat, they don't, but they have the ability to wait it out. They know how to fight. Like, how many, in a way, the battle in Afghanistan is the same battle we're fighting at home. And this is why I think we can learn stuff from them. Now, hear me out, right? So here comes America, and here comes the West with all these ideas about how to better make society. And we go to Afghanistan, and we spend all this money, and then we try to enforce upon them these academic ideas of what culture should be. And we bring them like gender studies, and we bring them like women driving, and hey, look at all this stuff we have in the West. And they're like, dude, we don't want any of that. Get the hell out of here. We don't want any of that. Please leave. And we're like, no, 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 we're not going to leave. We're going to just keep pushing this shit on you. The same thing is happening in our country that happened over there. Like we have this government, we have these corporations that are they're pushing this agenda on us. And it doesn't matter if you want it or not. It's coming, it's here. And like that's why I think if you want to learn the lessons of Afghanistan, then you need look no further than the society in which we live. Does that kind of make sense? I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I really have just been on this kind of trip about what you see out in the world, like the experiences that you see via through the internet or via through your life. Those things that you see are actually things that are happening in your life. Let me try to break that down a little bit because I know that's a pretty big thought. Let me try to chunk it down. So, yesterday, here you go. Yesterday, I got a call from a friend on my route. This older gentleman, really nice guy. I love him. And he goes, George. I go, yeah, what's up, man? And he goes, my neighbor, George, he's blaring his music all loud. And I went over there and very kindly asked him to turn his music down. And he told me to F off and get the F off my property. So the first question I thought to myself was like, dude, why is this guy calling me? And then I thought to myself, like, you know, what can I learn from this? What's going on here? And it made me think this. The things that happen to you in life are things that, man, I'm kind of rambling. I get it. It's a pretty big idea. I don't have it thoroughly fleshed out yet. But let me try to expand a little bit further. So, if something is happening to you, or if you see something happening in your life, then the world's going to keep showing you that until you solve it. Let me try a different angle. Let me try a different plan of attack. Okay, at my work, I am consistently seeing this issue of people not standing up for themselves. And let me give you an example. The young kids at my work that are like in supervisor roles, they are being told to write people up or threaten people with their jobs if they call in sick. Right? You might think like, well, that's part of their job, George. I go, yeah, it kind of is. But the issue at my work that I see is that people with sick days during a pandemic that have COVID, they call in sick, and the leadership at my work threatens to fire them. And so when I saw this happening, I stepped in because there's a bunch of young kids there that, they don't know how to stand up for themselves. So I went in and I pulled the guy aside and I go, what are you doing? I'm like, this guy has sick days. You're gonna threaten to fire him and write him up for using his sick days? And so the supervisor tells me, oh, you know what, George, I'm just doing what I'm told. And I go, yeah, well, what you're being told is wrong. And you're the guy in charge. So, what does that make you? If you know you're doing something wrong, why do you continue to do it? So I'm going to tie it together here. Hold on. So that's one example of people not standing up for themselves. And I've seen that on multiple levels at my work. Now you tie that together with the guy on my route that's upset about his neighbor who is not turning down the music when he wants. So by seeing all that, like, I think that the world is trying to tell me maybe I need to stand up for myself. Like maybe when you see stuff like that out in the world, maybe that's your cue to say, hey, George, you need to stand up for yourself better. And that's why you're seeing these cases of people not standing up for themselves happening. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's a pretty big idea, but think about it in your life. Does that apply to anybody out there? Do the things that you see happening in your life, is that a signal that you're doing something wrong in your life? Does that make sense? I think it does. And so, maybe that's a signal to all of us. So that's what I've applied, and here's what I've been doing, and I think it's been working. So I've taken that signal and I've said, you know what? I see all these people not standing up for themselves. maybe that means I should stand up. So from this point forward, I've been trying to go out and stand up for other people. Like if I see, not out of, I'm not getting in the way of people's relationships or whatever, get in the middle of people's business. But at the same time, if I see people around me that aren't standing up for themselves, then I usually try to go over and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. At least point it out. And it's been having a pretty positive effect on my life. So I just want to try to give everybody something that maybe they can use in their life. And this is a, a free tool, a free insight that might work in your life. It's been working in mine. So just let me try to streamline it again and put it into words that are easily digestible for everyone to utilize. The things you see in your life, if you see a pattern of things happening in your life that you're not happy with, that's a signal that that thing you're not happy with is happening in your life. And once maybe it means you need to go stick up for people, or maybe it means you need to follow through on stuff, or whatever it is that you see happening around you is something you need to fix inside you. It's been working for me. And I just wanted to share that with everybody. I think that right now it's kind of a crazy time, but I really think there's something there. I really think that, you know, by looking at what's happening around the world, you can find out what's happening inside you. Right? Here's another thing to think about too. Is every country a manifestation of the individuals of that country? Like, think about it. Like, as much as we all tend to fight in the US and we have like Republicans and Democrats, which is just one big party usually, but you know, we as Americans, we do go over places and we try to enforce our will on people. Do you think that that is something that is in our nature as Americans? Like, do we as Americans do to other people what we as a country do to other countries? Does that kind of make sense? So if you were to look at our policies that we have in Afghanistan or Germany or North Korea or China, if you look at our foreign policy, do you think it's fair to say that the United States foreign policy is a direct reflection of the individual attitudes of Americans? I know what you're thinking. You're like, nah, George, we don't even get to say what's up with foreign policy. But in a way we do. You know, like I know myself, and I know sometimes I don't know when to quit, or I'm pushy, or I can be all these things that it appears our country's foreign policy is. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about, but it's another good key. I think that, can you look at the world and make sense of what's happening out there and translate it into your life? Can you look and see what's happening in relationships around the world, and then see if they apply to your life, and if so, can you learn from them? I think that's the bigger key. So that's the bigger key. One other point I've been really wondering about is, you know, are we doomed to repeat the past? Are we? And I think the answer is yes. I think we have to repeat the past. I did a podcast the other day, and in that podcast, I asked the question: how often, how long do we need to repeat the mistakes of the past? And like, I couldn't let that question go. Like, it just kept bothering me. And then I started thinking to myself, you, you have to repeat the mistakes of the past. And so does your kids, and so does your kids' kids, and so does your kids' kids' kids. Like, we strive for perfection, but we will always have wars. We will always have atrocities, and we are always doomed to repeat those atrocities. I, I know it sounds kind of sad. Like, when I say it like that, it sounds kind of sad, but it's true. Yes, we must have wars. Yes, we must have bloodshed. Yes, we must have incredible atrocities. Like, that's never going to end. It's part of the human condition. But it doesn't mean that you as an individual have to participate in them. I think that might be the best lesson of history. Yes, we as a giant planetary organism are involved in some horrific things that are unexplainable. But you as an individual, you don't have to participate in them. But if you don't stand up for what you believe in, if you don't take a look at history and understand who you are, what's important to you, and what you feel is the right thing to do, then you will be swept up by emotion, and you will be swept up by the momentum that is our culture, and you will be pushed along the shore like the tide pushes a stick. You can rise above it, but it takes a lot of work. And it takes a lot of work on yourself to pull yourself back and be like, dude, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? And a lot of people don't like it when you stand up. A lot of people want to nail you down. Let me jump back on this one real fast. Like, imagine how much information like Facebook has. Like, I'm talking on Facebook right now, and you're watching it right now, or maybe you're watching on one of my other channels. However, think about the level of information they have. Like, they know who wants the shot, who doesn't want the shot. They know what you're willing to do about getting a shot or what you're not willing to do about the shot. They know people who are willing to fight, and they know people who are willing to lay down. They know who's going to lay down first, and they know who's going to fight the longest. So, in a way, think about what could be done with the information that Facebook and social media has. Like, think about the beauty that could be done. Like, here's a beautiful idea that we could be doing with all that information. Okay, what if we, and it's a little dark, but just hear me out. Okay, hear me out. From this point forward, all of our kids are going to be monitored from cradle to grave, right? Your child's from kindergarten to college. You're going to know what they like. You're going to know what they're into. You're going to know what they don't like. You're going to know kind of what their pet peeves are. You're going to know what their addictions are. You're going to know what they're attracted to. You're going to know if they're fair or if they're cheaters. You're going to know everything about kids because you're going to have this record of everything they've ever looked at for like 20 years. So theoretically, that would allow us, to pick people from our planet that are best suited for the best jobs. Okay, think about a judge. What does a judge do? A judge is someone who is supposed to sit and impartially judge the character, the motivations, or the intent of another person, specifically on crimes. Now, everybody knows that there's justice for rich people, and then there's no justice for poor people, pretty much, right? And how does that happen? Well, that happens because the lawyer that goes to law school has his surrounding friends and his circle of people, and his parents are probably pretty well off. And, you know, a judge becomes a judge a certain way. But what if we changed all that? Like, what if we could find kids at a young age that really cared about being honest? What if we could find kids at a young age that really wanted things to be right? And they have a track record of 15 years of always doing the right thing, or mostly doing the right thing. What would it mean if we could look at the search history of all the judges today? Like, think about the judge in the New York circuit that is supposed to be trying Epstein's case or Ghislaine Maxwell. Like, that bitch is a fucking corrupt, horrible, 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 horrible person, right? Any judge that can sit up there and just allow the crimes against humanity that some of the richest people in this world have done, they are equally guilty. And like, those people should be on trial for their own stuff. But like that kind of gives me hope for the future. Like, that kind of gives me hope for big data. And if big data, be it Facebook or if it's YouTube or any of these giant platforms. If we as individuals could harness that data and use it to better society, I think that it could be manageable. Like, don't get me wrong, dude, I'm anti 1984 and I'm anti Big Brother and I'm anti monitoring everything, but it's already happening. So how do we as individuals, how do we as people who actually run the economy, people that get up and go to work every day, people that, weren't given everything or born with a silver spoon in their mouth, or how do we get hold of that information so that we can better mold society for the future of everybody? Like, that's the question. What are you doing right now? Like, think about it like this too. If you know that education's changing forever, if you know that your kid is going to be monitored and tracked and databased, then what kind of future is your kid going to have? You could make the argument that, like, hey, look, I'm going to move out to the country and I'm not going to be connected to the internet, and I don't want any part of this society because I want my freedom. You can argue that, and I like that idea, and I like to argue that too. But is that what your kid's going to want? Your kid's probably going to want to be connected. Your kid's probably going to want to hang out with other kids. You know, your kid's world is being built in front of them right now. So know that what your kid is looking at online is going to become the resume of the future for them. Know that the engineering firms and the judges and the lawyers and all the professions of the future are going to be looking at what your kid has been doing from kindergarten to 12th grade. Like, that's the new resume. That's the new college entry exam. That's the new program. And that's the new program to get your kid into the best spot for the future. Like, that's how you prepare for the future now, is by manicuring the habits of what they're looking at. I think that. And, so be mindful of that. Be mindful of that. I was listening to an interview a while back about this guy from Harvard, and he was an Asian guy. And he goes, it's almost impossible for my kid to get into Harvard because I'm Asian. And my kid would have to have an extra 500 points versus any other kid of any other ethnicity. And the gentleman he was talking to says, look, well, just don't mark down the ethnicity box when you fill out your application. The other guy started laughing. He goes, that doesn't matter. He goes, nowadays, the best schools, the best institutions, they have records of your kid from cradle to grave. And like, that's what got me thinking. Like, they know, and when I say they, let's say the authorities, let's say the people who are going to have the ability to choose whether or not your child can participate later in life. People like that, they're going to know where your kid grew up. They're going to know how much money you as a parent made, if the kid comes from a divorced home, if they have any brothers or sisters, what their proclivities are. They're going to know all that. So if that is the future, then it's upon all of us as parents to try and create. Your kid's going to be who they're going to be, but it's upon us to help them create their resume. So I would strongly recommend getting a mentor online. Like, right now, all these Ivy League schools or all these engineering schools, like, they have all these students online that are teaching kids, and they'll do it for free. It's not that hard to reach out to a kid that, I'll give you an example. Like, my nephew Valentino, he's super into, like, building rockets and doing these things online that are super technical. And so I was talking to my sister, and I thought to myself, like, which one of these Ivy League schools, or which one of these schools nowadays is the feeder program for Northrop Grumman, or which one of these colleges is the feeder program for the military industrial complex? which one of these schools is the feeder school for, you know, modern rocketry? And whatever school that is, you just go on there, you just, I don't know, maybe it's Georgetown for politics or something. Maybe you go on there, you start looking at kids, you can email a few of them, and then remember, these are college kids. So you can be like, hey, you know what, my kid loves rockets. I'll give you $50 a week to talk to my kid for an hour. And I bet you, if you reached out to one of those kids, that they would do that. I know, because it's happening to my kid. And look, you guys can do this too. I'm very fortunate. My daughter has a mentor from MIT, and the girl's amazing, man. She calls up my daughter, and they talk for, one day a week for like an hour, and they talk about whatever they want to talk about. And I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying that to impress upon you that the long-term strategy there, right from this point forward, like, let's say that you're able to get a mentor for your kid at whatever school you want. Now you have this bridge. Now you have a long-term mentor program where in 20 years, if your kids stay somewhat consistent with the person with whom they're being mentored by, now you have an access into that school. Maybe that person graduates and starts their own lab or their own business, and they've been mentoring your kid for 15 years. Like, you have an instant access there. And it starts up a great cycle. Now maybe your kid can become a mentor to somebody else. I think that's the future. And I wanted to share that with you guys. First off, because I love you. And I think that's where we're going. And that's all I got for now. But thank you for taking a moment to listen to me ramble for a minute. I'm going to be doing some more live shows, hopefully later this week or early next week. So aloha, everybody. Have a great day. Love you.